Trish's specialty is coaching through adversities by any definition. A main tenet is you are not your diversity. Trish has extensive experience with powerful recovery from adversity, including traumatic losses, breast cancer, layoffs, dysfunctional bosses, teams, and business crisis. Trish has created the Power Path process, trademark, of coaching, getting outstanding results for her clients. She's also certified in team coaching and focuses on building strong cross-functional teams and leaders. Volunteering is one of her core values, giving time to the Girl Scouts, Feed My Starving Children, Minnesota Council of Churches, the public schools in Minneapolis, and served on president of the board for the Coach Federation for Minnesota. Wonderful. And teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction to teens. She lives in Minneapolis with her husband of 30 years and their 3 wonderful children, and is today accompanied by Mark Scannell, and together they will be presenting Lake Harriet Spiritual Community. Please help me welcome Trish Perry and Mark Scannell.
Greetings.
Hey.
Greetings. I'm Mark Scannell. I also come from Minneapolis. I'm a life coach, and was about ready to go back to bed this morning when I opened the blinds and saw what was out there. I thought we were coming closer to spring. I'm a native of Chicago and have been in the Twin Cities since 1977. Part of my background was that once upon a time I was a Roman Catholic priest and decided to leave and marry, and I've been married to my wife Elaine, who's also a life coach, for about 35 years. Besides doing workshops like this, I also umpire softball in Minneapolis, as well as officiated weddings. So it keeps me busy in my retirement.
You heard about me, so I'm not going to talk about that, but I also have 2 adorable new children, one 3 months old and one 7-month-old, and they are both Newfoundland puppies. So if you don't know anything about Newfoundlands, they will be about 125 pounds, so it is actually like having 2 more human beings who are going to be living in our home. They were so thrilled with the snow. And that's what ended up bringing me joy this morning, was watching them just go out, be so thrilled, especially after an 87-degree day. They were just romping, and it was so much fun to watch. So it was like, okay, do I like that it snowed? No, but there was such a joy in that. So joy is part of healing. Would you be willing to do an activity with us? Okay. I am going to have you close your eyes in a minute, and I want you to, when I say a word, and I'll say it twice, when I say that word, I want you to think about what is the first thing that came to my mind. And the second thing is, where do I feel it in my body? It's really important that we get in touch with our bodies, because I don't know about y'all, but I used to push all my emotions away and I would just keep going, right? Well, if you've ever read The Body Keeps Score, you know that your body locks those emotions in and they come out sideways. So this is an exercise for you to really be able to feel where you're feeling this word. So go ahead and shut your eyes. Healing. Healing. Okay, you can go ahead and open your eyes. Mark, can you lead us? Where did you feel it?
What came to me today when you asked me to think about healing was like taking a piece of cellophane off of me and being more open to the environment, to other people. I don't have to be covered up anymore.
Very cool. Where'd you feel it in your body?
Like around my stomach, my diaphragm.
Okay. Warm or cool?
Pretty neutral.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Very cool. Anybody else?
Hold on.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I felt the word healing in my heart, and it was like this warm, almost painful sensation in this area.
Thank you.
Who else?
When you said the word feeling, the first thing I felt was my head. So that's where I felt it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay, she said that she felt it in her throat. Okay, and was it a warm feeling?
No, more of a cool feeling, but, yeah, but feeling, when you said that, that's where.
Oh. So I as well felt it in my heart. It felt like this warm feeling. And when I think of when I thought of healing, I thought of calm and peace. So those were the first words that really came to my mind. And we are presenting on Saturday a workshop, Mark and I, and it's called Healing Through Stories. And stories really can, I believe stories are one way that the world heals. So I believe that there is a first part that is uncovering your story, and that's really for you to figure out. The second part is telling your story, and whether you tell it to a therapist or a friend or a partner, that's the second portion. And then the third is really sharing that story and being willing to have a give and take, as you and I have had. So, Mark, can I tell you a story?
You can, Trish.
All right. So I got to put my glasses on for this because I have to read. So in 2012, I got the phone call that every woman dreads. You have breast cancer. And it rocked my world. Not only did it rock my world, it rocked my family's world. It affected me in business. I had a double mastectomy. So I had surgery. I was out for 6 weeks. It affected my family, not knowing whether I was going to be around for very long, and my marriage, etc. I will share a story with you really quickly. When we brought my children, they were our children. They were 12, 15, and 17 at the time. And we brought them into the living room, and we sat them down. And of course, a family meeting, they're thinking they're in trouble, right? Nothing about me. They're thinking they're in trouble. So we told them what was happening. And I said, you know what? This is a family decision. This affects all of us, not just me. So we're going to ask you, should I have a single mastectomy or a double? And a lot of people are like, Trish, that's really your decision. I felt like that was our family decision. And so my children thought about it for a minute, and my oldest, Nick, who was 17 at the time, he said, definitely a double, Mama. We don't want to worry about it. And besides, you know how you are about symmetry. I'm like, okay. And then my 15-year-old jumps in. She goes, yeah, Mama, a double, definitely a double. Besides, do you want one Victoria's Secret boob and one mom boob? And I thought, out of the mouths of babes, because they were able to help us to go from this sadness and dread to this joyfulness. And that's how we ended up dealing with it. But after I had the surgery, fast forward 9 months later, and my sister dies of cancer. Fast forward a year later, and my best friend dies of cancer. I was so mad at cancer. I couldn't stand it. I was mad. I was sad. I felt like my body had betrayed me. And I was carrying that for 3 years, and it really did a number on me. So I thought, I can't do this anymore. What am I going to do? So I wrote a letter to cancer. And that was the starting of opening up my story. And I published this book in October of last year. And that's the sharing part of my story, is that I am now sharing the story with the world. So I want to read you the letter, if I can find it. Dear Cancer, as unusual as this may seem, this is a thank you letter. Do you cause pain and suffering? Yes, and I hate you for that. What you don't realize is through all of the pain and suffering comes endless love, pure compassion, wonderful and meaningful friendships, endless kindness that's magnified beyond imagination, and an appreciation for people so deep that it's indescribable. That was never your intention, so you don't win. You took my sister, you took my friends, and you tried to take me. But you still don't win. You see, I ended up more in love, more alive, more gentle, more peaceful, and more appreciative. So again, you don't win. My children, okay, now, when I start talking about my kids, sometimes I can't get through this. I'll try. My children have seen such deep love and gratitude that they wouldn't otherwise have seen. They've experienced a way of seeing life that I couldn't teach them. So again, you don't win. You've given me wonderful opportunities like participating in the 3-day breast cancer walk, which friends and I had such great memories of the fun, laughter, support, bonding, and strength that was built through the experience. So again, you don't win. You've changed me. I'm a better mother, sister, friend, wife, and person than I was without your presence in my life. So again, you don't win. So Cancer, in a strange way, I have to say thank you. You don't win. I do.
So can I ask you a question as I listen to your story? What was it like today to tell your story to us?
You know, the interesting thing is I've told the story now so many times, it's in my book, etc. But every time I tell it, there's another layer of healing that ends up happening. Every time I share the story, it goes one layer deeper and one layer deeper. So that's what I experienced.
Good. Thank you for sharing. Can I share a story with you?
Absolutely, I would love that.
The story I'd like to share this morning took place pretty recently. Last spring, I began to feel some discomfort in my legs. I went to PT and some massage, and nothing seemed to take away that discomfort. And then one of the doctors I saw said, I think it's important to have an MRI. And what the MRI showed was that I had a cyst that was rubbing on my spine in my lower back. And so they said probably at some point you're going to have that cyst removed. Well, on July 16th, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't walk. And so called the paramedics, taken to the hospital, and they said, this cyst has to come out. And they said, you can do it now or later. And my wife and I agreed, we're here now, let's do it. So they brought in a team to do the surgery on a Saturday night. And so when I woke up, everything seemed to be going well. But in the process, my whole system shut down. And one of the things that I learned from the various doctors I saw is that when we age, all bets are off. That anesthesia and surgery, there's no telling what can happen. And so my whole system shut down. I wasn't able to defecate, to urinate. And so then they put in a catheter, and then they discovered that I had a blood clot. And so I went on a blood thinner. So I was on a blood thinner for 3 months, and then once I finished that, I was able to have a surgery to redo my prostate and was able to urinate again and pretty much back to normal. And I think that as I look back upon those 5 months, they were really a call for me to change my life. In fact, what I began to call it was a second retirement. That the things that I was doing after I retired first, I had to let go of. And I'm also, as I look back upon what happened to me, I am eternally grateful to my wife, who stood by me and supported me, drove me to appointments, to the staff at Methodist Hospital, the doctors, the nurses, all the people who took care of me. So I feel today, as I tell the story again, feel very fortunate that so many people came around me to support me, to walk with me, that I don't think I could have done it without them.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really powerful. So no, we didn't talk about this, but would anybody like to share their story? Does anybody have a story they want to share? We have a taker. And again, we talk about sharing stories. Sometimes we're just not ready to share our stories, and that's okay.
So anyway, I thought this might help somebody feel better. I've have had a back problem for a long time, and spent, 50 years going to chiropractors and whatever, until it got to a point where the 3 vertebrae in the back started degenerating. So, and I said to God, why didn't you just heal this before? Why did you even allow it? You know, I'm a spiritual person. Why am I being ignored? And then it dawned on me that it wasn't that way. That's not what it means. That since I am a medical interpreter, so I'm often in hospitals interpreting French, Spanish, and Italian or whatever. And one thing I realized is this: if I didn't have my own pain, how would I understand anybody else's? I mean, I could translate it into whatever language you wanted, but I had no idea what I was talking about because I never had pain. So instead of seeing it now as some kind of, the angels screwed up or God, forgot or whatever, I just see it as some kind of reminder that other people feel pain. And I know what it is. I don't have to guess at what it is. And now it's getting better and so on. I have an implant and everything, but I have to be thankful for it because now when I interpret pain, I know what pain is. And for that, I am thankful.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that because you have taken, it's what one of my main tenets is, which is you are not your adversity. Your adversity is something that happens to you. And so many of us, when we go through those adversities and we start to uncover our story, before we uncover our story, we can play victim to that. And rightfully so. I mean, I haven't even touched on the adversities that have happened in my life. But at the end of the day, every adversity has made me who I am. Every adversity has helped me to coach people to find their inner power, their balance, and their direction again. And that's what I view adversity from. Anybody else want to share?
Just one other thing. I think in terms of your story, what struck me is the word compassion. And compassion comes from 2 Latin words. One means with, the other is to passion with, to suffer with. And my sense is what you described that struck me was you learned compassion when you were diagnosed and as you went through your suffering. You're a different person. you become a more compassionate person. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You started uncovering your story. Absolutely. We have one more back here.
Oh,
Good morning.
Good morning.
It reminds me of the psychology of the wounded healer and the idea without experiencing your own suffering and pain, you cannot really comprehend others. And to be brief, I'll come across a great quote and it'll resonate with me. And I heard someone say they took their filth and made it into fertilizer to help others and to make something good come from something that may be adverse.
Thank you.
thank you. That was, the source of that was a fellow by the name of Henry Nouwen, who was a wounded healer himself and a really great man.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thanks, Trish and Mark. I have more of a question.
So-
When you are in pain or in adversity or something, you're knee deep in it, that's the most dark and difficult time. What are some tools that you might suggest to get to the point of having insightful how do you get through that to the next?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I talk about, I know Mark does too, is actually gratitude. So as awful as the situation is, what can you be grateful for? So sometimes it's as basic as waking up in the morning. It's as basic as, you know what, I brushed my teeth today. And when I had cancer and I went through that and I was in a pretty dark place, the gratitude that I ended up with was all of these people who came out of the woodwork to help me. It was amazing. Our freezer, we ended up having to borrow a new freezer because we had so much food that people had made for us. And it was, for me, it was through that I was able to get to the other side. So I wasn't planning on telling this, but when I got back to work, here's how I was greeted by my boss, which was, again, one of those times when you're just like, why? I was greeted by my boss by saying, wow, it must have been really nice for you to have 6 weeks off and do nothing but read and watch TV. It was like I had been to the Bahamas. And really, okay, forgive this, but I really wanted to say, I don't know, let's take your balls off and see how you feel. I could not believe that's what he said. And I will tell you, it took me a while to figure out why I was grateful, because I quit in my head, but I had another surgery in January. So this was in August. I had another surgery in January, and I had to have my insurance. So I'll tell you where that ended up coming, Neil, was that I was like, okay, what do I have to be grateful for? 5 days before my second surgery in January, I got the call that my sister was having emergency surgery for her cancer. And I quit my job without question. I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna, if this will end up being the end of her life because it was stage 4, I don't want to be working during that time. I want to spend time with her. So then I was grateful that he had said that, because that's what helped me to just quit my job, go be with her, and she died 8 weeks later. Had he not done that, I don't know that I would have quit. Took a while to get to that part, but that gratitude is really what grounded me. Mark, is there anything?
I think the other thing I'd say that has become really important is having supportive people, communities that know what I'm going through, can support me, and even sometimes challenge me. I'm a veteran member of a 12-step group. And in that 12-step group, I've been able to find a group of people that I can be honest with about what's taking place in my life. They support me, they walk with me, and they give me an opportunity to walk with them. So I think along with gratitude, it's having some people who support us and walk with us. One of my favorite Christian quotes from the Bible is something Jesus said about where 2 or 3 are gathered together, I'm there. And what strikes me is Jesus didn't say, I'll show up when there's 1,000 people. He's going to show up when there's one more than one. And that gives me hope that in friendships, in communities, however the great or small the size, there's a higher power present that can be healing, can be supportive, can really walk with us.
So you asked for a tool. So gratitude is one, but I'm going to give you all another tool that you can do today, and I would suggest you do it sometime soon. Make a support list. Who can you call just to laugh? Because sometimes you just need to not think about it and does everybody have that one person in their life who's just so funny and every time you talk to them you feel great? Who's the one person that you can call and complain and they won't judge you for that? Who's the one person that you can call to make you dinners and support you? Who's the one person you can call who would help you come over and help you clean and do things like that? Who's the one person you can call who would just come and sit with you? Think about all the things that you have needed before when you were in some type of a crisis. And then talk to those people and say, I've put you on this list, is that okay? Because when we are in that crisis, we're just like, nobody wants to help. I don't want to call people. I'm a bother to them. I don't want to do this. But once you have that list, I do this with my clients all the time, and when they do go through crisis, they're so glad that they have this list and that they've already pulled that community together and they know that they're part of that community. Does that give you an answer? Okay.
I think another thing that I have found helpful, I've been involved in journaling for years and years and years, and sometimes having a journal, a private space where I can speak about what's going on, what I need. And the fellow who taught me journaling is a fellow maybe some of you have heard about, a fellow by the name of Ira Progoff. And one of his inventions was in the safety of your journal, you can have a conversation with difficult people or with cancer. And in that conversing, in that writing, in that going back and forth, often that gives me awarenesses I never had before. And I think journaling is an alternative to just analyzing, going over the same thing over and over again. It opens the possibility of something new emerging. And I think sometimes when we're in darkness, we're in need of something new that's emerging, whatever that might be.
So there are 3 tools for you: journaling, gratitude, and a support list. We weren't going to go there this morning, but I'm glad we did.
Well, I think another thing too is having some way of mindfulness and prayer, and releasing what we're struggling with and turning it over. As I said, I'm a veteran of 12 Steps. The 12 Steps, I think, are filled with a lot of wisdom about how to live life, not just kicking an addiction. And one of the steps is talking about the importance of praying, meditating, mindfulness, to stay conscious, to be aware of what's taking place, aware of what we might need to share with someone else, slowing down, what's perking within us.
So we touched on gratitude, and that's actually how gratitude and stories are how Mark and I connected. So I published my book in October. In August, I had a group of 3 coaches who had been very supportive to me throughout this journey. And one of those women was Elaine Gaston. And Elaine's husband is Mark. So he came over as well, and we had a meal together. And I gave all of the coaches a signed copy of my book. And it was Saturday, and I woke up on Sunday morning, and I checked my email in the afternoon, and there was an email from Mark. And he said, I just wanted to let you know, I picked up the book this morning and I haven't been able to put it down. So he read the book, or read part of the book, and I thought, maybe I'll hear from him in a couple weeks. No, I heard from him again that evening, saying, I couldn't put the book down, I've completely finished it. And from then on, every week, we exchange emails. And one day, he called me and he said, let's do something together. Like, what do you want to do? And we started talking about it. And we started talking about the fact that stories are what brought us together. Gratitude is what brought us together. So in our stories, there's healing. And we've shared some pretty deep stories, and there's always healing. So we thought, you know what? Healing through stories is the best place for us to go. So that's why we're doing the workshop on the 22nd.
Another thing I think that's important about stories is that it's about vulnerability. And I think in telling stories, it's important to ask, how much do I want to tell? Because that's certainly within each of our ways to decide. What story am I going to tell? And I think that in most stories, there's some degree of vulnerability. And again, I love words. Vulnerability comes from a Latin word, vulnus, that means wound. So I think often that our stories contain different wounds that we have. And I think the question then is, whom do we want to tell these stories to? That we don't tell our most intimate stories to everyone. In fact, if we tell them to everyone, the stories become cheaper. There's some stories that we reserve to tell trusting people, people that we respect, people that will listen to us and support us. There's a woman by the name of Brene Brown, maybe some of you have heard, has written a lot of work on shame, and when she talks about as we begin to get in touch with our shame, we don't tell everybody. We start with a few trusted people. And I think that's a very important kind of rule of thumb to keep in mind as we talk about stories. Is the person who I'm with someone I trust? Someone who can tell a very intimate, vulnerable story. I think it's important to tell our stories, as Trish is saying, in terms of this whole experience of healing. But I think we need to be circumspect and careful about who we tell our more intimate stories to. Will they receive them? Will they support us? Will they hang in there with us when they find out maybe a dimension of us they never knew before?
So the other thing about stories is vulnerability. Besides vulnerability is the fact that it's courageous. So it takes courage to tell your story. And I have told, I'm an open book now. I didn't used to be. So I'm an open book now. Obviously, my stories are in my book. But you have to be courageous to share your story because you don't know what's going to come out on the other side. So I shared the fact that I was going to publish my book with this gentleman that I did not know very well. Here was his comment. "You're an idiot." I was a little taken aback. I was
a little.
I was like, "Excuse me? You're an idiot. Only famous people should publish stories." Like, I can name you a few people who published their stories and became very well known. No, you're just an idiot. So I was like, I started thinking about it. I was like, well, there's your courage, Trish. You have to be courageous enough to know that whatever you tell, somebody could say something negative to you. And that's when I realized that, because I had really never had the negative part of it, but I had it there. And Mark had looked up the word courage, and he loves doing this and what the meaning is, and it's actually heart energy.
French word coeur,
And so, you know, all these words just go together really well.
And I think the other thing that comes with telling our stories and finding support is I think it's a way to develop and maintain resilience. Because I think all of us, no matter who we are, how old we are, young we are, will face adversity and challenges. And I think the things we're talking about helps us get up off the floor, rebound, move on to the next thing we need to do. So I think stories have within them, and as we can share them with others, the ability to deepen our resilience. And one of the things, again, in terms of words, I think that women often get the bad end of the stick, and I think in one way, the word history excludes women. So what we're going to talk about more next Saturday is not only history, but herstory. Because both women and men have stories that are important to tell to one another and to go across the gender lines and get the feedback of people of another gender. So I think that at the heart of who we are, history and herstory, is story. Those stories that we, and then one of the things that just maybe can be very commonplace, the older we are, the more stories we got. And the more stories we have to share with other people. And I think another way of in telling what happens in telling our stories is I think I learned things I didn't see when I told the story the last time or when that experience took place. Or the person or persons I'm telling the story to say something that opens up something I've never seen before. So I think that telling stories, besides healing, is inherently creative. That even though we maybe have told the story again and again and again, it's possible the next time we tell the story, we're going to see and hear something we never heard before.
So next Saturday, the 22nd, from, I believe it's in this room that we're going to do this, but from 9 to 12:30, we're all going to gather, and we are going to share more stories. And it's like the book. So there are 52 stories in my book. What our stories are a vessel to help others open their stories. So we're going to share things like the easy ones, which are the family stories, right? Everybody loves to share, okay, what happened in the family. So we're gonna start easy, and then we're going to go deeper. And whether you want to open up a story, whether you want to start a story, or whether you want to continue your healing and story, I would invite you to join us and bring friends, bring family, bring whomever you want.
Bring enemies.
And it's true.
It might be a healing time.
That's right. That's right. But it's really a time. I mean, you're not going to get your complete healing in 3.5 hours, right? It's just not going to happen. But it absolutely is a way to start it and to open it up in community. And you can share your story or you cannot share your story. It's a judgment-free zone. Everyone can do their part of it, what they want to do, and you'll have a lot of time to journal as well. So we invite you to join us.
And as we're coming to the close of our time, any comments, questions, observations by you all?
Is there a pathway to writing future stories that we live into?
It's a really good question.
The question is there a way to write future stories? I think that really taps into the importance of our imagination. That I think our imaginations carry within us possibilities. And I think writing and speaking those things in our imagination, it's like if it were spring, those buds, those seeds opening. And so I think one of the ways that the seeds that we carry within us is using our imaginations. Our heart, our imagination, yeah.
And quite frankly, we had not talked about that. And thank you so much for bringing that up, because that will now become a part of the workshop. So absolutely. I think it's really important. I teach, it's called Power Path Goal Success. And what I have people do is create their success stories before they create their goals. So 2023, what does your success story look like? And then you pull your goals from your success story, rather than the other way around. Oh, what should I be doing? It's full of, I could have, I would have, I should have, versus what do I want, and pulling my goals from that. So I love that. We will definitely add that. Thank you.
There's an old philosophical axiom that says first in intention, last in execution. We have to have the image, the intention, before we can move toward making it real. Thank you. Yeah. Other comments, questions, observations, feedback?
No?
Oh, hold on, wait.
Appreciate you so much about ideas, bringing this community, because it's great ideas. Because I see so much negative news, and they creative story negative in future. And today I just looking, oh my gosh, they create more wars, they create more sickness, they create more COVID, more create this is kind of already. Mm-hmm. They create already for summertime. They created for close all border already. They already put it. They creative too. Negative aspect of life already creative negative. Oh my gosh. And let us scare, let us involve to negative, because it's illusion. What's the creative? It's absolutely illusion. But what's the goal? We kind of focus and we help them creative this negative by our attention. Mm-hmm. Put the energy, what they're doing. We need to do, thank you for offer, because it's great to do something opposite. You know?
Absolutely.
Opposite the story what they already created for us. Because more we put attention, more we help them, it come true. So this is about this game, this big game. It's just game, everything game. Thank you.
I think one place that really showed itself is in the Me Too movement, when that happened. And I'm going to forget her last name, Alyssa, I can't remember her last name. Anyway, she put out on I think it was Twitter, if you've ever been sexually harassed or abused, just answer #MeToo. And there were millions of responses of these women who answered #MeToo. What she didn't realize was Tarana Burroughs actually was the first woman who came up with #MeToo, and her Me Too movement was actually a movement for younger Black women to get together and say, yes, me too. And the two of them got together and have created this amazing movement that is now worldwide. So taking a negative situation, sharing her story for the world to see, #MeToo became this powerful movement that has changed the lives of not only women, but of men as well. Because it's not just women who are sexually abused, it's men as well. And that is the power of stories.
You know, I think too that holy books often consist of many, many stories. And to me, they're more life-giving than commandments. I think we're at the end of our time.
We are.
Thank you.
Anything else before we finish? All right, well.
Do stories contain energy fields and tapping into that energy? Yeah, energy stuck. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. You're gonna hear me tell this on Saturday. I was sexually molested when I was 5, and I completely put it out of my mind. Never told anyone. This is when I was 5. When I was 40 is when I finally dealt with it, because something happened that just brought it to light. That energy had been stuck in my body, and when I uncovered it and then told it and then shared it, I shared it with people. And most specifically, I was talking to a group of Girl Scout moms, and we were just sharing stories, and I shared that story. And this one woman just looked at me and started crying. She said, "Oh my God, I was molested when I was younger. I never figured it out, and I couldn't figure out why I was so negative." And then she ended up getting help, and she ended up that's what she ended up doing for a living. So that's the power of stories, right? It's not telling it to everyone or sharing it with everyone. It can be sharing it with a small group. And the fact that you can change other people's lives. You know, being at the hospital and being compassionate about pain, he is changing people's lives. Because that one kind word might be enough to bring them through to the next day. You don't know. So yes, stories have power. Stories release energy, and we share energy. So absolutely. Thanks.
That's wonderful. And Trish Perry and Mark Scannell, thank you so much for speaking today and speaking next Saturday. Just one of the many events that do come up here at Lake Harriet. Thank you again. That was wonderful, wonderful. And if you'd like to go back onto YouTube, you can share that with friends and family. This is the time I would remind you that Lake Harriet Spiritual Community is funded by your donations. This is our primary source of income, which allows us to keep the lights on and bring us all these amazing experiences. We invite you to be a partner with us and support this community, and we are grateful for your support.
I'm writing a new ending with a better storyline. Turn the page and leave the blanks with a plot that's less defined. And though I won't get back a day stolen time, I could go to bed at night with a better storyline. Leave what can't be changed in the past. Let the old house burn down and the wind scatter the ash. Forgive myself for all the broken glass, for what I didn't know how to say or ask. I'm writing a new ending with a better storyline. Turn the page and leave the blanks with a plot that's less defined. Though I won't get back a day of stolen time, I could go to bed at night with a better storyline. Here's a scene when I lost my map, when the breadcrumbs blew away and there was no way back. Just the compass of my heart to find the path, seen only in the dark. Flashed a lightning flash, I'm writing an ending
Thank you, Gary. If you can raise your hands and repeat after me. God's perfect love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Thank you, thank you. Now, as we like to do at Lake Harriet, we're going to make a small circle, join hands, and Mr. Scannell is going to send us off with some wonderfully inspirational words. We'll probably have to cut across the aisle right here.